Oh, that's actually a crystal clear. That's
It's
crispy.
nice, right?
That's
Get
crispy.
a little 3D definition over there. There's a curve.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's nice.
All right. Today I did not post it on another site. We had a coffee tasting here at Starbucks. Shameless plug. With my guy over here, Big Rich.
What's that?
And he brought up some interesting things that I never knew about coffee. And what we're gonna have Big Rich do today is educate us on the bean and how to get that coffee on.
All right, man.
I guess that's the easy way to put it.
Yeah, get
coffee
the oomph.
Get the oomph.
Bite your lip a little bit.
All right, go over what you went over with us today.
So, guys, as we know, coffee is it's one of the biggest drinks. It's one of the biggest drugs that actually humans will drink and have been drinking for millennia now. And as the time has passed since we cultivated it, we've created different ways to roast it, different ways to grind it, different ways to just prepare it overall. Just for anybody's taste. Because we're all not just one fit ponies, Anyways, coffee originated in Central Africa. They believe it came from Ethiopia or Madagascar, and it's mostly going to be grown anywhere in the equator region, so right there in the middle of the earth. And as of now, it's grown in 70 different countries. Of course, not naturalized anymore, but we've done monocultures of the genus Coffea.
What the hell does monoculture mean?
Monoculture, so like if farmers decided to start planting one thing and just that one thing, let's just say corn was in production this one year and corn was up the highest, so everybody's going to want to be producing just corn, so they just plant rows and rows and rows of corn, whereas that never happens in nature. And so you get a lot of different things that happen because of that. You get reduced mineral content in soils, which will decrease the either availability or the health of other plants that are naturalized to that area. We are going to be having a lot of problems actually once global warming starts really taking effect, because sadly coffee is going off the deep end, because we're soon not going to be having regions that are hospitable for coffee to be grown. Yeah, that's going to be a sad one though.
Yeah.
But as I said, 70 countries that we currently grow coffee in, and we've been looking at different ways like CRISPR. If you guys have heard of CRISPR before, that's
No.
going to be so I think it was like early 2000s where they found this out, where E. coli produces a certain protein, and this protein does a really special thing where it'll lock on to certain viruses, so that it clips a little bit of the DNA and it brings it back into the mother DNA, so that whenever that plant or that bacteria, gets attacked by that certain virus or another bacteria again, it'll remember it and know how to defend itself.
Okay, so so they're taking almost like gene splicing.
Right, it's exactly like gene splicing, except for now it's cheap.
Oh, okay.
It's like $70 to get this protein.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and with that you can do any numerous amount of things. I know in France they just released several different males that have been attacked, or let's not say attacked, but have altered their genes using CRISPR so that they don't carry malaria anymore. It's going to be a big deal. We don't know what the effects are of it, in the wild, because life.
For me, I've been with you all day.
Yeah. Life happens, right? As Jurassic Park says, life always finds a way.
Okay.
But going back to that, we might be using CRISPR to be able to use or grow coffee in different areas of the world. Whether, we make coffee more drought tolerant, or able to grow in lower altitudes, simple things like that. But CRISPR is going to be a long way off from that. And I think people would definitely want to be getting into that, because, as I said earlier, coffee is one of the biggest drugs that we consume.
Starbucks.
Every day.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we talked about today was different types of brews. And for me, I'm not a huge coffee drinker. However, the education that I got from What was the two different types that we were talking about? The one most caffeinated and the two most used types of coffee.
Right.
in the
So
US.
there is several different species in the genus Coffea. And so genus is just going to be a classification term. Basically, it's the second most specific way of determining things. Kind of like, have you ever heard of kingdom Animalia? That's going to be the most generalized. And then you go from there to more specific. Genus is the second most specific, and so it's in the genus Coffea. And so there's actually only two species that we use to make coffee that we consume, and that's either Robusta or Arabica. And Arabica is supposed to be the earlier known ones, and there's still other species in this genus Coffea that is related to it that we don't use for coffee.
Now, give us an example of the robust, and give us an example of the
Arabica.
Arabica.
Yeah.
Arabica beans. Okay.
So Robusta is mostly what we're going to be using for espresso or kind of filler blends. So like if you get a medium blend coffee, something that's not too dark but not full flavored, or just too light like a blonde, in the medium, kind of like here at Starbucks we usually sell a lot of Pike Place. And that's going to have a lot of mixes of different blondes, roasts, and dark roasts. And so in something like a Pike, they would use some beans of the Robusta plant along with some beans of the Arabica plant.
Okay.
And that's how they get their flavor. But for the most part, 60% of the world's coffee production is Arabica species.
Okay. 'Cause I would actually think it would be robust simply because that's a term we probably more familiar with, and the fact that for me it seems to be the most flavorful.
What I've been reading is that it grows better. It's easier to grow, so more people grow that. Where Robusta is a little more kind of environmentally specific.
Okay, so like you were saying, mostly those are going to be dead equator areas.
Right. And with the Arabica, you're able to do a lot more different things with it because it does have properties that are less acidic. It's going to have more of that bitter taste, but you can be doing different things with it. Depending on the roast and how many times you wash it, and other processes that come to the final end.
Okay, now what were the four types that we had today?
So we just had Pike Place today, which is what all Starbucks is normally blend on a daily basis. You can get it at any time. And so we did different kind of tastings. We tried tasting brewed in a French press, also in a metal grind as well as a paper grind, and so that's going to be different coarseness. The paper is going to be a lot finer than the metal, and then the French press is going to be even more coarser than the metal. And so we brewed it in those three different ways, and just compared the flavor profiles.
And as you can see, we actually did take notes.
Yeah,
in
and
our little Starbucks books.
As Richard said, he's not a big coffee drinker, but what do you think about it? What was your favorite?
My favorite was actually like the metal filter, and I think that's what you guys use here at Starbucks more often.
Yeah.
And the one thing about it was the fact that, actually I just lied. It was the paper filter. Yeah, because and the metal filter, it tasted a lot more watered down. Because I'm actually looking at my notes now. it was a softer smell. It was a lot. It just tasted watered down. But the paper, paper filter pour over. I don't know what the hell that means, but you can explain that. It wasn't as smoky as the French press. It wasn't as gritty as the French press. Definitely wasn't as flavorful. It was a little bit more bitter. Because we were drinking it straight pretty much with no fillers such as sugar or cream or anything like that. It wasn't hazelnut or any of that. It was just straight coffee. And with me, I liked it because I don't need all the hit. I don't need the pureness of it. I just need it in me sometimes. And it's there. It tasted pretty good. But one of the questions I had for you prior to us getting here was, which one I guess, as has the most caffeine, and as if it does change, because we pretty much use the same type of bean, correct?
Right. Whether it's a mix of the Robusta or just
Right.
Arabica. Right.
But which one has the most caffeine, and if it loses any, what causes that loss?
Okay, so Robusta is going to have more caffeine content just as it grows on the plant. And so that is why we use it more on espresso. The bean is, you can get a little finer like that. And then also as well as instant coffee, and as I said, the coffee blend. But during the process of washing and roasting the coffee, which actually gives it most of its flavor, you're doing a lot of different things molecularly to it. You're
Okay.
changing a lot of the properties of it. After the roasting process, you would expect it, after it being cooked, you would expect it to actually be smaller because of all the water loss and a lot of other volatile chemicals that will be released during that process. But actually it expands because
Wow.
of the way that the bean is cooked. So it grows in volume, but is less dense.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have less material in it, but it's still gonna be a bigger bean.
So
But-
it's almost like when we learned in school, when you add fire to anything, there's a chemical change that takes place.
Right.
So,
And so as during this brewing or the roasting process, the more you're roasting it, the more you're cooking that bean, the less caffeine is going to be produced because of that heat, that exothermic reaction where the heat is coming out of the bean, it's gotten to a point where it's cooked most of the caffeine in it and it changes the molecular properties of it, not having caffeine anymore. I mean, it's still going to have trace amounts, but it's going to be less amount, just like how a dark roast is going to have less caffeine than a blonde roast.
okay.
And then another process that will also affect that is the washing process. So our blonde, the blonde that we normally brew, the Veranda, is going to be double washed.
Okay, what does that mean, double wash?
So after the brewing process, it's if you feel like a dark bean before it's ground, it's
Yeah.
really oily. You can
Okay.
just feel it on your skin as you rub it around. But a blonde isn't going to have those oils. They wash off all of that after the roasting process.
Okay, so when you're saying blonde, that means it's absent a lot of things.
Right.
Like caffeine, the oils.
As far
and
as, like, big
and those
taste.
are the things that give the bean its flavor.
Right, but it's not going to have, it's going to have more caffeine content because it's less roasted.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of different roasting processes. I mean, there's beginners that, will experiment with their own tastes. As you can see, different microbrews popped up all over the United States.
Okay,
all
now
have different,
again, what is a microbrew?
like small quantities,
Oh, okay, so like
high
the 1
quality.
cup.
Yeah. Where they're just looking at kind of like just a microbrew for a brewery, where it's small batches. They're mainly focused on like one customer base.
Oh, okay.
Not producing in excess.
Okay.
So
So Starbucks is definitely not
right,
microbrews.
no, they do it big, and it's mostly all manufactured with machines. And something like an experimental level, it's mostly a person, pouring in the beans and adding different nuts, vanilla, different things to be able to get that full flavor in that they're looking for.
Okay. Now, is there anything else you like to add? Because I got a great education there.
You guys should try different methods of brewing. Normally we always do everybody is familiar with just the normal drip process.
Right.
But there's so many different ways of exploring coffee. And I think since we all use it in our daily lives or we know somebody who does, it's nice to be able to experience it in a different way, at a different level. Just because, maybe in our lifetime we won't be having this anymore. So it's nice to be able to experience it while we have the opportunity to.
Thank you for putting that grim look on it.
You're welcome.
All right. But I appreciate it. And now, if you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
And we'll see you next time.